Most people have never met a true believer. Sure, we've read stories about believers. We know that true believers exist, but we hardly ever meet them. Well, Be Holy is a podcast that shines light on the behaviors, the mindset, and the duties of a believer so that we can recognize God's children, even when they don't look like God's children. It's a process. Today on Be Holy,
a miracle in Joppa. We're going to talk about it. Listen, how are you feeling? You know, that's a lot of things that in doing the podcast, we kind of forget about asking people, how are they feeling? How are they doing? How's your health? How's your family? You know, we can't take things like that for granted nowadays. We live in a day of here today, gone today. It used to be here today, gone tomorrow, but it's here today, gone today. And so I ask you how you're feeling because you're important to me. Your family is important to me. I don't have to know you. All I know is that your family is important. You are important to me. If no one ever tells you that, remember that I told you that. You are important to me. And if you're important to me, I know you're important to other people. You are. Don't feel like it sometimes, but you are. A lot of times we just live our lives day to day and you know, we just want to get our goals completed and finished. But we kind of forget about what other people may need and how other people are trying to do the same thing and get their goals accomplished. Well, I ask you today how you're doing, you know, and you can email me. Email me and let me know how you're doing. And if you need prayer, let me know that too. We have a thing at our church called the prayer list, and we put people on the prayer list, and we have a little small church, but I know God hears us because we keep getting reports of God doing things for people that we pray for. And it's not us. It's not us. It's not, you know, it's only God. We're just doing what he says. At least we're trying to do what he says. We're trying to talk to him about other people's situation and not always our own situation. And he tends to answer us. So, let me know if you need prayer and we'll add you to the prayer list and we'll keep praying. And you can tell us how it's going and what God is doing for you. And then I'll relay that to the members of the church. We here at Be Holy, basically, we're approaching this whole entire podcast from a practical point of view. What can you do today with the information that we're going to bring up? You know, it's just information that you can use. I don't have any emotional revelations. I don't need them. All I have to do is give you what God has given me as I speak here today. And I hope God begins to speak to you, not through me, but through him. You hear me, but you actually hear him. And so we're wanting you to start your walk or your journey with God today. All right. So we're going to go over to Acts chapter 9. Acts chapter 9. And we're going to do a little background here and then it'll go right into the verses. I mean, it's all going to be verses. I'm never going to try to go and look up something in a dictionary someplace because all the spiritual knowledge that we're given comes from God. It doesn't come from anybody's thesaurus, dictionary, Greek, Hebrew translations or anything like that. We just read it in English and ask God to give us the insight or whatever it is he wants us to give to you or whatever he wants me to say. Verse number 36, chapter 9 of Acts, verse 36 says this. There was a believer in Joppa named Tabitha. Now in Greek, her name was Dorcas, but her name was Tabitha. And she always did like very kind things for others. And and helping the poor. The very same thing that I tell people all the time. A lot of times we're sitting there, we're trying to get all the rules together out of the Bible. We're trying to understand all the Bible and memorize the Bible. When really all you have to do is do good things and be kind to others, helping the poor. If we would do that, that would help society. Verse number 36 again. There was a believer in Joppa named Tabitha. She always did, kind things for others and helping the poor. Verse 37. About this time she became ill and died. So that sometimes people, believers, they become ill and then they die. That's a true statement. A lot of times people think because you're a believer, you're not supposed to be ill. You won't be ill. You'll never be ill. You'll overcome all illnesses and you won't die. Well, Tabitha, she became ill and died, and her body was washed for burial and laid in an upstairs room. So they had already got her body together, cleaned her, washed her body, and prepared her for burial. They did not expect her to come back from the dead. Her body was washed for burial and was laid upstairs in the upstairs room. Verse 38. But the believers had heard that Peter was nearby in Lydda. They had heard that Peter was nearby in Lydda. So two went in to beg him. So they sent these two guys to beg him, please, please, please come as soon as possible. Please, please, please come. Verse 39. And so Peter returned with them. He didn't say, I'll pray for you. I'll come back later. I'll talk to you tomorrow. That particular time, he came back with them. And as soon as he arrived, they took him to the upstairs room where Tabitha was. The dead body was. The room was filled with widows who were weeping and showing him the coats and the other clothes that Dorcas had made for them. But, Peter asked them all to leave the room. Sometimes you have to put everybody out so that you and God can commune. Sometimes you and God got to be together. You got to talk to him and put everybody else out, just in case there are any doubters. That's why you don't tell everybody your vision, because there could be doubters. And then if you're working with God and you're talking to God and God's leading you and guiding you, and you let someone in who's a doubter, you can short circuit that thing that you and God have been talking about, that short circuit, that miracle that God has been doing for you. The room was filled with widows and they were weeping and showing Peter the coats and all the clothes that Dorcas had made for them. Verse number 40. But Peter asked them all to leave the room. Then he knelt and prayed. See, a lot of times nowadays, if you're not talking to the Lord beforehand, you'll just run in there and start praying, or run in there and start laying hands on everything, and run in there and start speaking in tongues. And I don't have anything against any of that. But here, he asked them to leave the room, and then he knelt and prayed. Turning to the body, he said, "Get up, Tabitha." And she opened her eyes. Now they've already cleaned her body for burial. They have her prepared to be buried. And the saints, hey, you don't know what can happen. Let's call Peter. Peter's nearby. Have him come by. And so he comes. He follows him back over there. He walks in, puts everybody out of the room. And then what? Well, he kneels and prays. And then he turns to the body. "Get up, Tabitha." And she opened her eyes. And when she saw Peter, she sat up. I don't know if it frightened her that he was standing there or what. I know I would have been not second guessing, but it would have surprised me for her to open her eyes and just sit up. How about you? You ever seen anybody raised from the dead? I'm sure it still happens. Sure of it. "Get up, Tabitha." And she opened her eyes, and when she saw Peter, she sat up. Verse 41. He gave her his hand and helped her up. Then he called in the widows and all the believers and he presented her to them alive. In verse number 42, the news spread through the whole town, and many believed in the Lord. Not Peter, in the Lord. And Peter stayed a long time in Joppa, living with Simon, a tanner of hides. Well, he walks in, puts everybody else out, kneels and prays, tells her to get up, helps her up, and then presents her alive to the people. Have you ever been counted for nothing or counted for dead, and God brought you back to life? You could have been the worst human being, the worst family member, the worst husband, the worst wife, the worst child, and nobody believed in anything about you. They never believed that you would ever come back alive. They figured that you were just, bad to the bone, and it was never anything that anybody could do for you. And then God messed around and changed you and turned your whole life around, turned your mind around. You began to follow God, and then he met you where you were, and then helped you up off of whatever you were laying on. You were asleep at one time. Let's put it like that. You were asleep and you couldn't see the truth of what God says. I'm not talking about the truth of an organization. I'm not talking about the truth of the church. I'm talking about the truth of what God says. And so you were blind, or you were sleeping. One way or the other, you couldn't see it. But then God woke you up. God opened your eyes. God opened your eyes. And now, you have a great testimony, because you remember where you were a year ago. You remember where you were even last week. You remember where you were even yesterday, let alone 20 years ago. God's been working with you this whole time, saying, get up. It's time to get up. Come on. It's time to get up. Just as that woman came alive from the dead because Peter prayed and then God raised her, it's the same thing. We all have somebody praying for us, I hope. You have somebody praying for you so that God can raise you, so God can help you up. I ask the church all the time, are you guys praying for me? Because if you don't pray for me, I won't be able to tell you the truth, because I'll still be asleep. I won't be able to tell you what God says or what God has given me, because I know he's giving you something too. And so are you praying for me so that God can raise me up? I'm praying for you so that God can raise you up. Some people had a mother praying for them. Mama was praying. Daddy was praying. Sister was praying. Brother was praying. You strung out on drugs or strung out on something else, left home, and it wasn't a good situation, but some kind of way God kept you and brought you back. And even if you didn't go home, he still kept you wherever you are, protected you. Somebody had to pray for you. Somebody had to pray for you, and I'm glad about that, because if nobody prayed for us, we'd all still be asleep. The Bible talks about Jesus prayed for us. Before we even heard about Jesus, he was already praying for us. And you know what he's going to do on the last day? He's going to say, get up, and we're going to be presented alive, just like Dorcas.
Well, how do you feel about today's lesson? Share Be Holy with a friend, a colleague, or someone who needs it. Each lesson is given by our own Pastor Nard. Your sins have been forgiven. All you have to do is believe it, and God will help you through your journey. You've traveled long enough without him. Speak with us at beholy116@gmail.com. Your support of Be Holy is greatly appreciated. Simply text the word GIFT to 614-363-6133. If you're ever in Columbus, Ohio, come visit us. Brought to you by the First Church of Christ Apostolic Way, a small church with a big heart.